All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I am here with Ken Gembel. Ken, so awesome having you on the show, man.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. I appreciate you having me on the show, and it's been fun over the last couple of months actually getting to know each other and sitting in
Yeah,
numerous meetings together and collaborating on some other topics. So
yeah.
I
I mean, we've had
appreciate
a
you
number of
wanting to talk to me.
conversations, and I know you've been on one of our round tables, and even right now, before we hit this record button, heck, you and I have been talking for 30 minutes almost, and I'm like, man, maybe we ought to hit the record button and see if
Yeah.
it's something we can share with some other folks. So,
Well,
so before we get
it's
rolling,
funny.
oh, go ahead.
We went. So my youngest daughter, Lexi, loves the band One Direction. I was on one of the Simon Cowell shows, and
Uh huh.
one of the guys came to Michigan. We went to the concert last night. One
Okay.
of the cool things is him saying, I appreciate you wanting to come see me. The guy's name's Niall Horn. And it's kind of like, I'm getting where it's like people want to talk to me. And it's like, wow, it's kind of wild. Like, people want to talk to me. It's like, it's that
That's
same
right.
thing. Like, I'm thinking of him going, he's thanking us for wanting to come see him. So I appreciate you wanting to talk to me. So,
Absolutely. Well, so I'll tell you what, Ken. You know what? I love the way that your mind works. There's a lot of things I really appreciate about you, and I know I shared this before, and again, well, I don't want to give that part of it away because it's going to become evident the more we do this interview here and stuff. But I love the way that your mind works. I love the way you tie your work in with your passions in life, and that'll become evident as people listen in on this conversation today and stuff. And what I want to do before I forget, I want to give a quick shout out to Jessica and the folks over at the Podcast Guest platform because I am so appreciative of Jessica and the work that those guys are doing. And Ken, I really doubt that you and I would have ever met if not for them. And I just really want to honor that. And Jessica, I feel like she's kind of become this guardian angel. She's always looking out for me and reaching out, going, Kevin, I think so and so would be a great guest for your podcast. And she has not once ever steered me wrong. And so whenever she emails me and said, Kev, I got somebody that I think would be a great guest, I just say, if you think so, then yes, I'm in. So, and that's where we've got with Jessica. And I'm just really appreciative for her, and I'm appreciative to them for the work that they're doing. So, Kim, what I'd
they do
like
a
to
pretty
do to start
fantastic
off,
job. I'll say.
what's that?
They do a pretty fantastic job because I'm on the mailing list of just podcasts. I
Okay.
love listening to people. I love listening to what people did to be successful. So I love when that thing comes out a couple times a week and it's like, oh, this could be a good one, that could be a good one,
Yeah.
to just give me different content to listen to. So I always got my motocross pods that I listen to, but I love leadership and business and success stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I love that forum because it just gives me so many, exposes so many ones I would not see and some new ones
Totally.
that are really.
Yes. And and like, and from my side, being the host of a podcast and being able to just get exposed to such amazing guests, I mean, it's just a win-win all the way around. You're on the other side where she's exposing you to potential podcasts you might want to be on, and I am on the side of being the host who's looking for great guests for the podcast. And so they get to serve both groups of people and just kind of combine us together. And
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing that they're doing. So what I want to do is, Ken, I want to start, but I want to turn it over to you because you have a really amazing background, and I want to let you share kind of what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work that you do and the impact you're making, and just kind of share your story and give the listeners a little bit of idea about who Ken is and what Ken's all about, man.
There's there's a few people that influenced me starting the business, and one of them was I was the president and general manager of Cosworth North America.
Okay.
So it's the historic F1 IndyCar engine. They made a tremendous push in 2016 to get a manufacturing presence in North America. And we got awarded some OEM contracts, and I'll just leave them at that because the OEM ended up canceling all our car programs to make battery powered vehicles. So it really put the nail in the coffin to Cosworth North America because we had invested, the major shareholders or venture capitalists that owned us had infused so much money into doing this. And then we get a headquarters built, the manufacturing facility, bring on about 70 people. We're producing parts, zero defects to the customer, delivering it on time, addressing numerous changes to their design, which requires us to change the manufacturing process and do all that after a company went bankrupt, which is what led us to win the business or start the business up here. They had a company that got awarded, they go bankrupt. They're like, oh my God, we're getting ready to launch in 3 years. We need someone to take this thing over. We're going to rebid it. Would you guys want to bid it? And so that's when you come in on something like that. And it's when you make an opportunity there while it's super tough and complicated, you take a really hard swing at it, and we won it, which was awesome.
Yeah.
They canceled the programs, and at the same time, I'm finishing my PhD in industrial engineering. So I thought, you know what? All right, I'm going to take a breath here. Like I've been carrying a lot of loads, and I'm just going to take like a month or two to get my bearings, celebrate the victory. I'm looking though. I'm looking, and I had some good opportunities coming up right before the pandemic hit. But I wasn't in like a frantic state, like, holy shit, I got to get a job right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like, I'm going to find the right job. Like I'm going to find, because the Cosworth deal, had the contracts not been broken to resource because they canceled the vehicles, it was an unbelievable job. I mean, they did in that time period have done the Aston Martin Valkyrie. So I think I can't remember if it's 1136 horsepower, if it's 1186 horsepower, naturally aspirated V12. The 1,000 comes from the naturally aspirated V12. There's like 136 or 186 that come from an electric drive in the front. Okay. Kind of give it a little help in that, but it's like a $4 or $5 million hypercar, and it is like the coolest looking. I mean, it's like an F1 car, F1 road car. Runs 11 to 12,000 RPMs. I mean, it sounds super racy. So had I not done that, I wouldn't have started this. Because my wife's like, she's kind of like, what can we do to not move? And I thought, well, I had some companies reaching out to me about helping them. So I started consulting in companies that were having manufacturing problems. But in my mind, I also had some buddies or some friends that went into private equity and were turning companies around. And, one of them, his name is Dan Bickersteth, super sharp guy. And it's one of the things that you learn from motocross. If you want to be fast, you ride with the fastest guys. You don't go beat the slowest guys. You get on the track with the fast guy. You watch what they do, because every time you see one or two things, that makes you incrementally better. I remember being in the meeting and seeing this guy, and I'm thinking, like, God, it's been 3 years since I've been in Detroit, or 4 years. I'm like, God, that IE is super sharp. And he tells me his name, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I remember him. He'd went into private equity, had some really cool wins, but he's always like, Ken, when are you going to pop the pacifier out and go in and really transform some companies? So part of me was like, you know what? I can now get the ability to go look at these to do the turnaround and then get some equity stake in. Mm-hmm. So it was like that. I can make income by helping companies, but then it also gives me the ability to get a look at other companies to see, and even if I'm in consulting, to go, hey, do you have, you don't have a generation to hand it to, you don't have a succession for you to exit your business. If it's like a mom and pop style, we can dialogue and go, hey, what is your exit plan? one, I can help you prepare it to sell so you get the most money for it.
Yep.
Because we'll drive your EBIT up. We will make the performance better, not by cutting people out, but using your assets to maximize performance. And that's kind of one of my things. Like I look at those assets and I'm like, how can we get the most out of the assets?
Yeah.
Machine and your people.
Yeah.
So you kind of couple those things together. Makes it really fun.
Yeah.
And so I started my own consulting business. That kind of where I talk about my wife. I got my awesome daughters and my dad. I used an acronym that my dad used for me to name my company. So I trademarked the acronym for LUCK, laboring under complete knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's Luck Unlimited Group Holdings is my company, and I have Luck Unlimited Apparel. And so kind of with the mindset that we're going to get in, we're going to find some companies to do acquisitions on. And so I thought, I'm going to do that. So kind of with my wife and my kids cheerleading me, started doing my own business back in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what took me to this point. But I love going into the companies. I know there's a bazillion coaches, and maybe through the social media search engines when I'm on Instagram, I see every coach on earth come up. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things different about my coaching is we'll go in and give some philosophies on leadership and managing your people. But we're really going to go in and look at the culture of your company and see what type of continuous improvement culture you have built into your company. How are you engaging your team to make improvement? Yeah. And we have some very robust ways that when I go into a company, I can look at it and see just from talking to some controllers and walking the floor and the leadership to see, and a lot of it comes before seeing how much opportunity is there. And then with our coaching, we just don't do the in-room sessions like, I don't want to say I force them, but I really persuade them to like, all right, now let's take it to the floor. Like if we're going to work together, I want to do the classroom stuff a little bit, but then we're going to put it in play because you don't want this to be the annual training you do that everyone's sitting in there clawing their eyes out. Like, why are you making me sit in this HR? We're going to move the needle so that your people on the floor that go home every day and complain to their spouses about how terrible all the stuff is at work, we're going to eliminate that. Yeah. And so that is part of the thing is listening to those people. But the wins you get when you listen to them and then you connect it to that performance, we've seen tremendous performance. And in 2023 alone, we drove $150 million of productivity improvements. And it could have been more, but I'm comfortable being super aggressive I look at things as they're inefficient and efficient. They're inefficient and efficient. So when something's inefficient, like in my mind, I'm ready to just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's fix it and do it. It takes a lot for people to change when they've been doing something a certain way, even if it's inefficient. Mm-hmm. It really, sometimes it's a little baffling, but it's walking them to that. And sometimes it takes a little bit of the nudging to help, get them to want to take the step forward to do it. But we do it with data, and that's what we show them is like, here is what you're leaving on the table with your asset utilization, with your people utilization, serving your customer. So they can paint the picture because that's what I want CEOs and controllers to then go back down to the floor and say, all right, how do we get this? And then be the cheerleader and support system of driving that stuff at the bottom. Yeah. Because, they can set a standard and an expectation, but ultimately it comes to getting those guys to execute that change properly and put that right system in place.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's fun when you see the transformation. It's like when you see that person that you're like, whoa, I haven't seen you in 4 months and you've lost like 35 or 40 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that same thing. And a little bit out of that gate, like getting the change to happen. But once they start getting that win, once they can see the win, like it creates a much larger momentum.
That's right.
And that's where hopefully at that point they take it over and go, well, this is awesome. we're dominating this. And you get that Alabama mentality or like the Michigan 2023 mentality where they were steamrolling teams.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, instead of reacting to the issue, you're getting way in front of it in a proactive fashion and using systems,
Yeah.
systems or processes, which, you know, but that's the thing that, you know, connecting the motocross to the business stuff is the things that make athletes successful are the same things that make business successful.
Yeah.
It's a process, system, and discipline.
Yeah.
Being
Yeah.
disciplined.
Yeah. Man, that is such good stuff. And you know, I know that there's a certain percentage of entrepreneurs listening to this going, dang, Kev, I really appreciate the way that Ken's mind works. And and for those of you that are kind of thinking that way, before we end this, I'll make sure we include information on how to get a hold of Ken and what have you for those of you that do want to follow up on that. So now that we've got some context set here, I'm going to shift gears just a little bit, and I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of our listeners. So, Ken, have you ever met or been introduced to someone or someones who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And Ken, I'm just really, especially now, excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Well, I'm gonna walk. It's gonna walk back to my family again at some point here. But there was the CEO of the first company I worked for, Richard E. Dowd,
Okay.
was a tremendous leader, and he was aggressive, and he was demanding, but he could see more in you than you could see in yourself. And that was the very cool thing. And he had some really, really cool sons that and I remember the first time I met him, I remember him walking into the room and you could feel the atmosphere change. It was like, boom, like this guy's in the room. He's asking you questions. And I just remember thinking though, like, I remember thinking this is pretty cool. Like, how do you be that guy? Like, how do you be like that guy? Right. And then I had another guy, like you see when you're kids and you see a good athlete. Like I grew up in the Flint area, and you know if you look at schools like Beecher and Flint Catholic Powers, they always turned out professional athletes. And there was, you know, a few other ones that come out of some different schools, like a John Runyon that played, I think, for the Philadelphia Eagles and went to Michigan, came out of Carmen Ainsworth. Like I played basketball against him. The guy was like 6'9" in like seventh grade. Right? I was pretty tall. I was 6 foot. This guy was huge over me. And like they were good, but I went to a motocross. I started racing as a freshman in high school. Second race was getting Brian Swim. Unbelievably better. Like it was the first time in my life I seen someone that was like, I'm like, I can't even wrap my head around how that dude is so good at what he does. When I met Dick Dowd and I started seeing like the standard he set, the discipline, I connected it to the motocross and oh, I can see why Brian trained a lot, practiced a lot. Like he rode an insane amount. One year he went through 125 clutches in his bike.
Wow. We
live in Michigan too, so and he would travel down to Florida, but 365 days in a year, he's changing a clutch like every 3 days. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would be lucky to go through one, maybe two in a year. Mm-hmm. You know, when I was riding a lot, I connected that like the process that those guys were wanting to make success. The other thing that the CEO told me is he was like, there's going to be some key decisions you're going to make in your life. 3 of them. Are you going to get married? Okay. Are you going to have kids? That's a big one. You know, I remember me like, Ken, he called me Kenny. There's a lot of responsibility there, young man, that you know, because he was a mentor. Like he mentored everybody in the company. I spoke at a Rotary Club meeting a couple weeks ago, and one of the people in the meeting messaged me. She's like, "Oh my God, my dad worked for Mr. Dowk, and I always heard these stories. You're the only other person I've heard that actually knew him."
Wow.
And then he said,
Wow.
"How are you going to support your family?"
Mhm.
He said, "Well, you're an engineer and you've already made the decision you're going to come work for me right now." So, and I wasn't married and I didn't have kids yet. He's like, "Those are like the three decisions you're going to make in your life." And so I did. I picked a great wife, my wife, Alicia. We've been married for 22 years. We've been together for 30.
Wow.
So we pretty much started dating like a year or two after 94, like 2 years after I graduated.
Mhm.
And we've just been together forever and it's been great. I got two daughters. I got my youngest daughter, Lexi, who is super fun and outgoing. And both of them are, but Lexi is a little bit like she loves motocross like I do,
Okay.
which is weird because there's this whole girly girl side to her. So she likes to figure skate and dance, but then she also runs cross country, plays basketball, and does track and field. And as
Mhm.
a freshman in high school, she ran varsity. Sure, times you earn your spot by how you run, right? So
Mhm.
she ran with the varsity team as a freshman because she was in the top of the school in running. And so, that like now their inspiration me to start my own business kind of flips this thing back to where I'm looking at them and how do I keep them where they want, because they've moved around because of my career a lot, which they've sacrificed, moved. They lived out of the country. My youngest one was from like 1 to almost 2 to 5, and then 4 or 5 to 8. My oldest one was in Mexico.
Okay.
And so, and even Lexi, my youngest one's had some health issues this year where when we still don't know. So if there's a doctor that listens to this, and my daughter's been throwing up since Super Bowl Sunday. She started about 2 hours before the Super Bowl. Multiple, we have had tests, organ enzyme levels, all sorts of scans, biopsies to check stuff out. And we can't really find the problem. And she's still doing it, right? And she missed a bunch of school, still got all A's. So she's kind of gritty in that thing too. And then I have, in which, I look at that. I always look for things that inspire me. So I look at that and go, all right, well, you know, that is a marker of pushing yourself when things are uncomfortable. It'd be easy to go, oh, I don't feel good and I'm going to lay in bed. But she would email her teachers, what homework did I miss today? Get it done that night. If she had questions, she would be emailing the teacher, like, I'm to this point, I have a problem, and just always on top of her stuff. I mean, we were driving back from medical appointments in Ann Arbor, which is 4 hours away. She's logged in on the computer in the car doing her math, throwing up, you know, just like I got to get all A's. I do this. And I got an older daughter who, I think it creates the family competitive nature part of it. Like the older daughter's a role model, but then the younger one's like, well, Lily does super good, so I need to do super good. So Lily is another figure skater, dancer, and a pretty cool vocalist. You'll see like on the background there of the apparel company that you'll see her singing the anthem, but she sang at some big events. And so like all those things, kind of looking back at how I'm going to provide for my family and how I'm going to do this. And now a little bit of what I'm doing is trying to, with them, how I look at their grittiness, I go, well, it is cool to get into a big company and do stuff. Right now, my oldest wants to be a pediatric cancer doctor. But now I'm like, you can be very entrepreneurial, kind of like what we're doing. You starting up your business, I'm starting mine up. You don't have to go work for a big corporation. I tried to expose them to all the different things. And, I think Lexi will be coming out with something pretty cool here by the end of summer that she'll start doing some things that are going to be pretty cool for the apparel brand. And Lily with her anthem singing and that stuff has already been doing some cool stuff. And we have a lot of cool marketing, but, inspiring me and people that have changed me, like the CEO and Brian Swink, and then kind of how it led to my family. And now it's a little bit like I look at them and think, what's a standard I got to set as a role model, as a dad and a parent and a husband for them to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so
And you and I. like I shared at the beginning when we hit the record button, had been already talking for 30 minutes, and you were talking about your daughters, and I was like, man, it just for me, I'm a husband and a father myself, and we've got 7 kids, and to hear another entrepreneur dad talk about his kids with so much pride is just so awesome, you know. And I know for me, I mean, I think a lot of entrepreneurs will just get really buried in their work, and even use their work. They'll put work first and say, well, I'm doing everything I can to provide financially for my family, and so they're doing that, but then they're not present there for their family. They're not. And I know for me personally, I started going down that path years ago, and it was about I don't remember what year it was exactly, but I do remember in my business sitting in the office on a Sunday going, this is ridiculous. I don't want to be doing this. And that was the first time that I ever realized that like, you know what, I was like, I'm making a conscious decision. This is not what I want. And ever since then, I have been so intentional about structuring my business and my life, structuring my business so that it funds and provides for the lifestyle that I want to live, so that I can be the husband and father I want to be first. And that in turn allows me to be the entrepreneur that I want to be. And it's been that way ever since. And I'm not going to say everything is unicorns and rainbows all the time, but it's pretty doggone good. And I feel like I'm a pretty doggone blessed guy, and you are too, Ken. We are both really blessed guys that we have these skill sets that are incredibly valuable to the right people, and we have this relationship with our spouses and with our children that we get to be completely present for them and not just be the entrepreneur who provides for them.
Yeah.
And
Well, even what I'm doing now, I'm actually incorporating them into it, so I get to work with them essentially.
Yeah.
So we're at the motocross race this last weekend, and my daughter is looking at racers, and my youngest one, Lexi, actually wants to kind of, I don't know if she'll do like a legal path, but she wants to kind of be like I don't want to say like an agent or almost like a marketer of athletes, but kind of both type of thing. Like she really, she likes sports management type of stuff. She likes watching hockey, football, motocross races. I mean, she watched every weekend. It's like, hey, is there a motocross race on there? What time's the motocross race on there? Why isn't there a race this weekend? Because motocross is one of the few races. They start January. They go till I think this year they're going till October.
Wow.
That's their whole season.
Yeah.
But then they start November 1st testing for Supercross. It starts like the first Saturday of January.
Okay.
These guys take literally maybe 3 weeks off of like hardcore training and testing.
Wow.
And so,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's fun, but it's incorporating into this and kind of actually switching it from being super scientific, like figuring out this marketing stuff. And it's pretty fun because with them, I can ask them, what do they think looks cool? Like what will grab the attention of the demographic of people we want to make the brand cool with? It's different when you're 50 versus being 15 and 18.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So, but it's fun, man. I don't know how you do 7 kids though. 2 has been a lot.
Yeah. Well, I don't know exactly either, but We've got, four of them are out of the home and married and got kids of their own. We've got six grandchildren currently, and we still have three of them under our roof. And even now, you know, um, it's only going to be a few more years. I mean, Brock is 16, Ellie is 14, and Abby is 13. It's only going to be a few more years until they're out of the house too. And I'm looking at this going, man, where did the time go? Where did all the time go? You know, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. And it's going to be different because our house is definitely the hangout for all of their friends. And their friends call us mom and dad and all of that stuff, and it's going to be weird and it's going to be quiet when they're out, and I'm like, that's going to take some adjusting. So, but
Yeah.
and well, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation, Ken. For anybody that's listening to this going, man, Kev, yeah, you're right. I appreciate the way that Ken's mind works too. And man, I might even like to have a conversation with him. How can they find out more about you? Any websites, any resources that we can share with them?
So from the consulting side, luckunlimited.org
Okay.
is the site that goes directly to me, to my consulting email.
Okay.
I think my phone number is on there also. I'm pretty accessible. You can DM me through the Luck Unlimited Instagram, email me through the thing, and I believe there's a phone number on the bottom of the page.
Okay.
And then we have Luck Unlimited Apparel that we started, an apparel brand based off the acronym. As I would travel, people would see the shirts and hats that I'm wearing, and they would go, I love that acronym. Where did you get that? And I thought, well, you know what? We can inspire other people to go after what they want to through this mechanism also. And that's kind of where I was talking about the girls helping me and helping them, and that's where the thing, like, to give them some rope to try to be entrepreneurial and just do different things.
Yeah.
So but those, you can get me through either them. And then for the apparel, we got Luck Unlimited Apparel on Instagram. I think it's Luck Unlimited on Twitter, and Facebook. It's at Luck Unlimited Apparel also.
Okay. Perfect. Awesome. Well, Ken, once again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. I really appreciate it, really appreciate you, and I'm excited to get this out there and share it with a lot of other entrepreneurs, founders, and CEOs. So thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate that, Kevin.
You bet.